Is Rita Traut Kabeto. Did I say that right, or did I butcher it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. During her youth in post-war Germany, Rita never dreamed of writing a book. In school, she was always first to finish an essay because she never knew what to write about. But life has its way. An occasional college essay on the social conditions of life in the USA led to 8 books of prose, poetry, fiction, and nonfiction for all ages, including the translation of a book of fairy tales from the Bohemian forest. All of her work touches on the metaphysical side of life. Rita lives with her husband, a native Ethiopian, in North Portland, Oregon. Through this relationship and its connection with many other Ethiopians and their religious and social institutions, she has become well acquainted with this ancient African civilization. So much so that she considers herself to be the product of 3 cultures. It definitely broadens one's horizons. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you. But my work is not about Ethiopia. It just helps to learn to look at things in a different way. I have a trilogy here that I would like to read from, so it's going to have to be short from each one. Each one stands on its own, but these are continuations. This is the third one, the second one, and this is the third one. This is how it all starts. Can everybody hear me? Even if I don't speak through the loudspeaker? Oh, well, I'll try. This story starts in this convent boarding school in Germany. This is in the early 1950s. My favorite place in all the world. I went there. My work is, I came up with a new term today, maybe a new genre. A metaphysically spiced autobiographical fiction. Now, this was not a penal institution, and I discovered that a lot of Americans think that's what boarding schools were for. After the war, there was no business school in my hometown, and my father was a businessman, had a wholesale and retail store. And then he learned that there was a business school for girls not far from my hometown. And my older sister was sent there. It was a 3-year school from 8th through 10th grade, so a middle school, but oriented toward business. And when my sister was done, I went. And I should add, I would like to read the foreword, but I'm afraid it's all going to be too long. I had wanted to go to this school. I had no idea what I would learn there. Nobody ever told me. It was never discussed. I had certain ideas about being in a boarding school, and that's why I wanted to go. And I'm saying that Spirit had its own agenda. So I'd like to read just a little bit from the very beginning. The heroine of the story is Stephanie Sauerling, and in her class, on the very first day, she meets the WEIRD STEFFI, who has ESP. So on the first morning, the girls are all lined up to go to the dormitory for breakfast, and here we go. Before we were finished, Mother Superior showed up. She started her welcome speech with a traditional Bavarian Grüß Gott. She talked like a drill sergeant whose job it is to make a mensch out of a misfit. I couldn't take my eyes off her remarkably ugly face with its lively little mustache. It twitched and shrugged and rose and sank with the contortions of her mouth. She stood tall and powerful like a man, her thumbs tucked into the white belt over her broad middle. It was impossible to think of her as a woman, and my mind created a new category of human beings who exist somewhere in the realm between male and female, but are neither. Then Sister Falada, second in command and belonging to that same category, had a few things to say while her beady little eyes shot darts from behind her glasses. She was short and slight and easily overlooked. She was just reading us the daily do's and don'ts, mostly don'ts, when Steffi, who was sitting at my left, let out a short, loud chuckle. All eyes turned in my directions as Steffi shrunk into a tiny heap beside me and out of sight of the nuns. "Stephanie Sauerling," Mother Superior shouted, looking straight at me. "I expect you to follow your sister Anna's example. She was a good student who never caused us any trouble." Folds of disapproval rippled along the deeply entrenched ruts across her forehead. I pointed to Steffi, but Steffi looked straight ahead, as if only her body were present while the rest of her was somewhere else and therefore not involved. I didn't know what made me angrier, that Steffi got me in trouble or that I was expected to be a second Anna, who had to be the meanest big sister there ever was. Steffi was handy, though. I kicked at her with my left foot, but hit the leg of her chair instead and hurt my toe in the bargain. I tried pinching her with my right hand tucked underneath my left arm, but Steffi moved deftly out of reach, the way Anna always managed to do. I began to fume. I forgot that I wasn't dealing with Anna, forgot that next to nothing had happened, remembered that Anna always got away with things, and I swore I'd get her on the way out. We were barely finished when the school bell rang and we were dismissed. Before I could get on my feet, though, Steffi jumped up, snuck past me, and headed for the door. I hurried after her, and just as I was about to grab her by the skirt, she pulled out a chair in passing, then stopped long enough to watch me run right into it, knock it over, and fall on top. The last I saw was a smirk on her face. I could have strangled her. Then either the very same day, in the afternoon, all the girls are going out with the nuns to pick blueberries in the woods. And there, picking blueberries was a dreary chore. The berries were teeny tiny, few and far between, and they grew low to the ground. When I spotted a dense grove of pretty young firs, I pushed my way into the trees and found a very secluded little clearing that was drenched in quiet sunshine. Sister would never know if it was my pail or someone else's that hadn't filled the big bucket. Suddenly, Stephanie had found a little group of firs and had pushed her way into it. Suddenly, a body raced up out of the tall grasses. It was Steffi. "Well, well, well," I said, surprised and amused at the sight of this beautiful trap. Steffi jumped up and looked for an escape, but suddenly she sat down again. She wrapped her arms around her pulled-up knees and buried her face among her skinny arms and legs. I sat down near her and said, "You owe me an explanation." No answer. "You got me in trouble," I said. No answer. "I just got here, but already I have a bad reputation with the nuns." Steffi raised her head and stared straight ahead. "What's your problem?" Suddenly, she turned her face to me. Her big black eyes looked scared, but her mouth was set with determination. "Did you ever see or hear things that nobody else can see or hear?" she asked. "What are you talking about?" "You know, last night when I yelled, I saw something awful happening. A car accident. Somebody got killed in a car accident." "You saw it from your bed?" "And yesterday when I laughed when Sister Falada talked to us, well, a bunch of elves were running up and down the table collecting leftover food. They were so funny that I couldn't help myself." "Elves, as in fairies? And the shabby house near the convent?" Steffi talked fast, as if she were trying to spill it all before she changed her mind. "Well, there's an awfully evil something about it. I can feel it. It actually hurts me." Steffi began to cry. Confused by this unexpected outburst, spellbound by what she had said, I had no idea what she was talking about. I felt as though someone had just emptied my entire brain of everything familiar and had dumped in a whole bunch of strange new stuff. So new and different was this stuff that my brain didn't know what to do with it. Perhaps she had hallucinations. That was something I had heard of. Or maybe a heat stroke. Should I console her or should I get her out of the sun, I wondered. Finally, I figured sympathy could never hurt. So I moved closer and put my arm around her. That was all she needed. Now she sobbed uncontrollably. So that was her first confrontation with the metaphysical aspect of life. She goes to all 3 years to the school. There's a young love affair that is very beautiful and innocent, like you don't see it anywhere anymore. And no sex involved, just beautiful, young, innocent love. So then in Fanny's flight, okay, after she finishes the school, she expects to be working in her father's business. But her mother has other ideas. She had just lost her housemaid again, and so she takes Stephanie to be her housemaid and nursemaid to her younger siblings. And there are 4 younger siblings and 3 older ones, except her oldest sister dies. That hated sister dies in that book. Okay. So now she's stuck in that household, no rights, no privileges. Oh, and I should mention that I said autobiographical, and that's what it is. The places, the backgrounds, the times, the way we grew up, all of that is the real thing. So she's stuck at home without any rights, no privileges, nobody tells her. There's no such talk about vacation or, like I said, rights, that she has rights to maybe a limited number of hours per day of work, that she gets a day off during the week so she can be on her own. Nothing like that. So in Fanny's flight, she finally talks her mother into letting her go to dancing school, which is somewhat like the coming out party for the 16-year-olds in other societies. And it's a big event, and most girls end up with a partner that they meet in the class. And then at the end, there's a grand ball where everybody comes dressed to the hilt. So in this dancing class, she meets Leon. Now, one day, oh, and of course, mother can't know anything about it. Leon is a journeyman butcher, and that is totally unacceptable. So, have you ever been to the border? And this is the border between East and West Germany. My hometown is only 25 miles from what used to be that border, and it goes right through the Rhone Mountains, which is a beautiful mid-high region, just wonderful for hiking and skiing in the winter and so forth. And the border goes right through there. So Leon says, have you ever been to the border? And he's taking it on his motorcycle on a visit. No, never, I shouted into his ear while they're on the motorcycle. I was beginning to get chilled on my bare legs and was glad when Leon stopped. We had passed a few signs that announced the approach to the Russian-occupied zone. We got off the cycle and looked around. So where's the border, I asked. Well, right here. See the barbed wire? That's it? This is where the Russian sector begins? But I can step right over this wire. It's just a roll of barbed wire. That's how it started. Of course, 40 years later, it looked different. That's it, I can step right over it. But don't do it, replied Leon. But anywhere else I can walk from the American sector into the British sector, but we're not supposed to walk into the Russian sector? Who says so? Look, there come the border guards. Indeed, 3 uniformed young men with guns shouldered came walking along the plowed strip of land beyond the barbed wire. They walked past, then disappeared from sight as trees on the western side blocked our view. After a little while, they reappeared. These are Russians? I asked. No, they're East Germans. So why are they patrolling this border? Because they're under the domination of Russia. And it's very clever, too. Germans won't mind Germans patrolling the border nearly as much as if the guards were Russians. But why all this barbed wire? There is a suspicion that Russia wants to make this border permanent. So all along this border, no one is allowed to cross, not from west to east, not that anyone would want to, and not from east to west. And they will shoot to kill over there if someone tries to escape. So it's really a prison. How strange to think that all of East Germany is a prison. This border goes right through the Rhone. My father had customers over there, and he knows a lot of people, and the parents of those guards might have been friends with him. And people who have family on both sides are now cut off from each other. And now we're enemies, even deadly enemies. Sad, isn't it? It took a while for all this to sink in and for me to digest it. The appearance of the so-called border was innocent enough. It was simply a roll of barbed wire, nothing else, and one could step over it easily enough. And then she sees a flower over there. "Leon, look, see the silver thistle," I said and pointed. "Yes," he said absent-mindedly while watching the border guards. They didn't seem to pay any attention to us. They had their backs turned toward us and mumbled among themselves. "I'm going to get it," I said. "Are you crazy?" Leon nearly yelled it. It took me by surprise to see him so riled up. "But it's good luck to find a silver thistle," I said. "Maybe these guys could get it for me." And before thinking it through, I called to them. "Don't do anything stupid," Leon pleaded. The guards ignored us. I called again. "Shh, don't talk to them," Leon implored. "Why not?" I argued. "Are they going to shoot us if we talk to them?" "You never know. In Berlin, they shoot people trying to cross the border." "Well, this is not Berlin." It seemed to me that Leon was awfully fearful. "Hey, Grenzer," I called to the guards. "There's a silver thistle growing over there. Would you please pick it for me?" They whispered among themselves. Then one of them came a little closer and said, "You can come and get it yourself." Had I taken time to study the expression on his face, I might have changed my mind. Instead, before Leon had a chance to hold me back, I stepped over the wire and walked right over to the flower. "Don't be stupid," I heard coming from Leon as I bent down to pick it. I heard a sound like a wail behind me. When I stood up, I felt a hard object in my back. I turned to look and found myself staring down the barrel of a gun. "Oh, you scared me," I said reproachfully, trying to push the menacing object aside. Instead, the other two guards now also pointed their guns at me. "Don't you know these plants are under nature protection?" the first guard said slowly and menacingly. There was nothing friendly in his face. His cold, hard stare began to disturb me. Still, this had to be just a big joke. I was told to come and get it, and I did. "All right, get going," said the first guard with a harsh voice, his head pointing in the northerly direction. "You mean—" I looked to Leon. He seemed to be in awful agitation, stepping from one leg to the other, looking back and gesticulating as if to get someone's attention. His face was contorted in utter alarm. "Leon," I yelled while the guns pushed me forward. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Grenzer, let her go. She didn't do anything. You told her to come and get the flower herself. Why are you doing this?" "Shut up," one of the guards yelled back. "I'm going to notify the authorities," Leon shouted after us. "Yeah, you do that," one of the guards shouted back, and let out a derisive laugh. It began to dawn on me that I might be in more danger than I could have imagined. Fear began to grip my inside. "Stephanie!" Leon called after me, anguished, frustrated, and fearful. "Don't you worry, I'll call your parents." "No, don't do that," I yelled back as I whipped around in near panic. Leon stood there, motionless, with a baffled look on his face. The gun in my back persuaded me to move forward. A mock border authority in my head declared that we were now in the Russian-occupied zone of East Germany. But I won't tell you how. Am I done? Oh. I get one more minute. It was past midnight. I was lying in bed but could not sleep. My mind kept reliving the events of the past day, and each time I reached the point at which I rushed into Leon's open arms, a shudder of delight went through my body and aroused me again and again. We had not seen each other since that sunny spring afternoon of the previous year in Hanford. Well, I'll make it short. They get engaged to be married. 16 years later, she's married to an American ex-GI.